I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I'm delighted to welcome Elder Roger Bernard Anderson Sr. to our show. He is the esteemed author of a wonderful book, an inspiring book called God's Protection in the Midst of Danger. He is also an associate minister at Faith Apostolic Church of Tuscaloosa. He combines his profound educational background with heartfelt spirituality. He has journeyed through diverse academic landscapes, ultimately obtaining a ThD in theology as the class valedictorian. We are delighted to have this distinguished author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Authors Reputation Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Roger, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Good to see you today. Let's start out by giving the folks at home the big picture. Let's tell them about the book, God's Protection in the Midst of Danger.
Okay, great deal. God's Protection in the Midst of Danger was a book that was actually laid upon my heart due to the fact where we were at the time. Soldiers actually leaving home, some of us for the first time in life, being separated from the families, friends, and the book, I wanted to bring a closeness to all the soldiers that were there, their families as well. Wanted to give them a little insight about, even though we are miles apart, we're still felt within our spirit that God is with us. And so I wanted to bring that light to them so that they would know that, they're not alone.
Absolutely. How has your own personal journey influenced the messages in your book?
With my personal journey, it was tough. Being away from home, from family, friends, loved ones, for the first time, and not knowing the significance of where you was going, what was going to happen, and whether you was going to make it back home or not. So I had to dig deep within myself and within my spirituality just to comfort myself, for one. To encourage myself that, hey, look, God is with you, irregardless of how it may seem. And that message can be portrayed to your other soldiers.
Absolutely. How did your experiences at the University of West Alabama shape your thoughts and perspectives on spirituality and religion?
Well, with the University of Alabama, I was actually there in the technology division. Didn't have a whole lot to do with the spirituality side. Although during that time, I was just beginning to start my ministry. And so there were some things that was taking place during that time. But most of it was actually during the latter years of my life with college terms.
Absolutely. And you furthered your education at both Ashworth College and Liberty University, correct?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your studies there, sir.
With Ashworth, I had a diverse background as far as technology, law enforcement, and it accumulated over into my spirituality side, where I went to Liberty University. Had a wonderful time with my studies at Liberty University. This is where most of my spirituality side began to form. And after finishing with my master's degree there at Liberty University, I went on to Gateway Global Bible College and received my ThD in theology. It was there that I gained a lot about my spirituality side, looking to see how God works with us, for us, and it just encouraged me to carry on.
Absolutely. Tell me about writing your book. What was that like? Was that hard work? Was it very inspired? Did it just kind of pour out of you?
It was kind of strange. It all began when we got mobilized to the country of Iraq. And while I was there, we was combined with some chaplains from Providence, Rhode Island. And when soldiers were killed, we did a memorial service for them, boots on ground. And during that time, it was laid upon my heart to start writing poems to the families of the fallen soldiers. And after writing those poems, one of the soldiers in my unit came to me and he said, "Hey, you ever thought about writing a book?" And I was like, "Well, not really. I just wanted to kind of give some encouragement words to the family of the fallen soldiers." And he's like, "Well, you might want to think about it." And I was sitting there one day, and all of a sudden it came to me. He said, "Hey, look, put your writing on paper." And I was like, "Okay." And so that's when I started to doing a rough draft on a manuscript. And from that point, that's what led to the writing of the book.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell me a little bit about your experience in the military.
When I first went to the military, I joined the military in 1989 as a food service specialist, worked in the kitchen. I was a cook. And I furthered my military education, became a military police. And during that time, I had the opportunity to serve in Panama for 2 tours in 91 and 95. Had a chance to go to Germany in 2002. Progressed through the ranks from actually what they call a buck private, and then you go to a PFC, private first class specialist, and then your sergeant, staff sergeant rank. So I was able to progress to a staff sergeant and was getting ready to enlist the rank of a sergeant first class, which is E7, before I got injured in Iraq. But during that time, my military career was grateful for me. It was a promising career. If I had to do it all over again, I would. I enjoyed it, made a lot of friends, met a lot of people, and seen a lot of places that otherwise I may not have seen if I hadn't been in the military.
How many years did you spend? You were in the Army, I presume, right?
Yes, Army and Army National Guard. I did 16 and a half years.
Wow, that's a long time. That's a whole other life for you then.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of, for some people, it'd be a disparate life between being a theologian and being a soldier. But you've balanced the two very, very nicely, it seems, right?
Yes, sir, I have.
Yeah. So when you left the military, what happened to you then? What was next for you?
When I left the military, I came back home. I used to work with an automotive industry, a company called TNWA, which stands for Tire and Wheel Assemblies. We produce tire and wheels for pretty much all the automotive industry, Ford, Toyota, GMC, Cadillac, BMW, Mercedes, Hyundai. We pretty much kind of did it all. And then when the company closed that I was working for in 2007, I came home and worked at the Tuscaloosa VA Medical Center, where I'm employed now. And I came here and I worked here as a VA police officer, progressed to the engineering services and maintenance, and then left there. And now I am one of the VA staff chaplains.
Okay, so you're still basically aligned with the military, which has been part of your career path right from the start since '89. Absolutely.
Yes.
But you also work with the Faith Apostolic Church. Tell us a little bit about that and what your role is there and what your experience has been like there.
The experience at Faith Apostolic, it's been a great one. I'm one of the associate ministers there. And our progressions, we have Bible study on Tuesday night. We have Sunday school on Sunday morning, and we go into Sunday services. It's been wonderful. We are connected with an organization called PAW, which is Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. And we're worldwide. We have convention, we have councils, and we just attend to our faith the best of our ability and what God gives us to do.
Wonderful, wonderful. And has that, your work with the church, has that influenced your writing at all?
It did, because I wanted to get it out, not only just for the soldiers, but for the families, and also to encourage others, especially the young generation, that there is something that you can do, even when you feel that it's not. There is something that you can do. You just have to tap into your inner self and just lead on the guiding of God.
Yeah. Are you working on any other books right now?
I am currently not. I have one in mind. I have already set aside the topic for it, but I haven't started any manuscript writing on it yet.
Gotcha. Tell me a little bit about the influence of your parents, your late father. How have they influenced your spiritual journey?
My father and I was real close. He worked out of town a lot, and once I was on my break from school, I would normally go out of town with him and work. But my biggest spiritual uplifting came from my mom. Of course, you know they say that the women's are the ones of the church. So my mom, she was very encouraging for us. She kept us in church. That was something that I grew up and it became a part of me. Um, and when I never forget when I left to go to Iraq, my mom actually told me that my dad said that he was not going to take another drink until his son came home, which was encouraging to me. And then my mother, she sent me a verse, actually from Psalms 91 in the book of Psalms. And that stuck with me the whole while that I was there. And I would never forget that when we had this event with COVID, when COVID first started, this was one of the highlights of a lot of spiritual based organization. They depend on Psalms 91.
And what is Psalms 91 again?
It talks about he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadows of the Almighty. And it continues to go on about the Lord is our rock and our fortress, in whom I trust. And it's just an encouraging Psalms to let you know that, okay, there are times when things happen that we don't understand. We may not can see it happening, but when we are covered by him, everything else is going to be okay.
Yeah. It must have been a tough journey. I mean, 16 years in the military, some of that time spent in Iraq, which is perhaps the most unstable place on earth when you were there. What was that? That must have been frightening. I mean, you probably really did have to wrap yourself up in your faith and in your love of God and trust in him, right?
It was, Mr. Crawford. It was very demanding, very, very hot. We think that it's hot here, but it was very, very hot there. And then one of the things that we had to contend with a lot there is that when we first got there, there was no bathrooms. We had to make believe showers by water jugs, and we had to, and bear in mind for the people that are listening, I don't want to offend anybody, but there were times we had to put diesel fuel into half 55-gallon drums to burn off the waste from all the soldiers. It was just detrimental, but the Lord helped us through it. We were able to come back home, and we give him all the glory for it.
Yeah, that's an amazing journey. I mean, because we don't think about half of it. We don't think of what it's like to be in that heat, in a uniform, carrying gear, carrying a weapon, wearing a helmet, wearing boots. I mean, that's like, when it's 100 degrees in Tuscaloosa, you're in shorts and a tank top.
Right.
There you're dressed like you're ready for war, which of course you are. And you never know when you're going to come across an IED. You never know when that pickup truck is going to turn out to be a bunch of maniacs spraying gunfire. So there's so much uncertainty.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. But you would do it all over again if you had to? You'd go back and serve? Yeah.
I would do it all over again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about what you hope people take away from your book, God's Protection in the Midst of Danger.
What I would like for individuals to take away from this book is to realize that, yes, my loved ones were deployed. Yes, my loved ones were in harm's way. But even in that time, we thank God that, they was able to return home. Most of them that was still in great faith, great mind. But I want them most of all to take away from this, that irregardless of the shortcoming, irregardless of what is happening around us, even though we doesn't have the constraints, we doesn't have the inner taking of everything that's taking place, but we do have some control to believe within ourselves, that God is who he say he is. And I remember what stuck with me a whole lot was in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, when the Lord spoke in his word and said that he trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not to thy own understanding. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct our path. And that's all we had to go on.
Right.
It wasn't about us, but it was about him. And so we wanted him to direct our paths, even though we was in harm's way and we had no inclination of when or what going to happen. We just trusted him.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think your upbringing in Sawyerville helped shape your faith and your worldview?
It did. It did. And I believe that one of the most impacts is that when we used to go to the prison camp every first Sunday of the month and minister to the inmates, I always feared inmate because I thought they was a bunch of monsters that, created a lot of havoc, but actually getting to know them and seeing how they are taken care of, what they was being treated like, brought another perspective to me and how I felt about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you were actually serving in a ministry with prisoners?
Yes. Yes. We would, our brotherhood from the church would go to the state cattle ranch, which is one of the minimum security prisons here in actually Hale County, which is not far from my hometown where I grew up. And we would go there every first Sunday of the month.
And that was just a volunteer thing that you did to work with the church. Was that part of your work with Faith Apostolic?
Yeah, well, actually, I was with another organization, but we were in the same organization, though. It was a different church, but in the same organization.
Did the inmates seem appreciative of your efforts?
Oh, they loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it, and actually, that's where my ministry started. My ministry started for me at the prison.
Amazing, amazing. Do you have your own ministry now?
I don't have my own ministry at this time, but we don't know what the Lord is going to do in the future.
Yeah, yeah. What inspired you to, really pursue education as strongly as you have?
I've always wanted to do more, and that drive to do more is what drove me to continue to do my studies. And a lot of people ask that question. It was like, well, you weren't satisfied with your first. I was like, no, I'm not satisfied with that. That's because I want to make myself marketable. And therefore, if something doesn't happen, something else can pick up. And so that was my main purpose and my drive.
Absolutely. God's protection in the midst of danger seems to have applications, of course, for more than just soldiers, because we live in a troubled world where, there are shootings at the shopping mall, there's shootings at schools. We all kind of live in the midst of danger, just crossing the street. Is that kind of the point of the book, that God's watching us always? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, it is. And when we look at the big picture, even though we as soldiers was in a dangerous place, and it seems like we were under attack from perspective where we were, but when we look at it here in our own country, we have a lot of this going on as well. Like you say, shooting in malls, robbery going on, a lot of things that take place. And even with all that, I want to inspire others that read this book to understand that we don't have to go through this. If we would just turn all of our attention to him, we don't have to go through it. We need to move from when Moses was talking to the Israelite, we need to move from fear to faith. And right now we have a lot of fear. Everybody wants to handle things their way. And it's time out for that. It's time for us to move from that fear factor and move to faith.
Do you think there's so much crime and so much mayhem and so much chaos in the world because people have forgotten their faith, have forgotten their religion, have turned their back on God?
I believe so. I believe that the force that used to be there, the liking of attending a place of worship, the liking of helping one another is actually nonchalant now.
Do you feel like mass media, whether it's movies, TV, film, TV news, whatever it is, tends to treat religion, faithful people, spirituality, God and Jesus almost as a joke?
Almost. I truly believe.
Yeah. Because, it really diminished every chance it seems that TV producers or movie directors have to diminish religion, to criticize clergy, to make it seem like that's for the other people to believe
Right.
in. You know, I think they're really harming society, you know, gravely, because faith and religion and spirituality are so important in having a civilized world.
It is. And
Yeah.
when we look at it, Mr. Crawford, just think about it. I remember when I was in grade school, we get to school. The first thing we did was we said we had a student that was brought up to the principal's office, get on the loudspeaker, and they would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
After the Pledge of Allegiance, we would have prayer. You
Right.
know, now they have taken and removed that. From and it's sad because of what has happened. But they want to remove that, but they want to give rights to everything else.
It just doesn't make sense. I mean, why is swearing allegiance to this great country that everybody here has come from somewhere else?
Right.
Everybody else came here to escape. Everybody came here for freedom. And that's a great country to swear allegiance to. Why should that stop? I don't get it. Why should prayer in school stop? I don't get it. You know, if you had more prayer in school, you'd probably have fewer shootings in school, because these gunmen are spending time doing this and playing games and killing people on their phone until they actually step into a classroom or step into a mall with a real gun and kill somebody. If they were taking the time to read books like yours, God's Protection in the Midst of Danger, then perhaps they wouldn't be on such an awful, awful path.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's next for you? What do you think? What's next in your spiritual journey? What's next in your ministry?
Well, with me, I just want to continue to reach out to help those that are in need, whether it's spiritual, whether it's natural, whatever it is that God has guided me to do. I am in the process. Again, like I say, I have a title for the next manuscript. And just when time permits, I sit down and I start, with the guidance of God to start putting that manuscript together. But in the meantime, we continue to have our council meeting. We continue to have our district meetings, and we don't know what's going to come out from that. If the Lord see fit of me having a ministry on my own, that would I pursue. But I want to be under His guidance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've written a wonderful book. It's called God's Protection in the Midst of Danger. It is written by Elder Roger Bernard Anderson Sr. It is a read that will inspire you, that will renew your faith, which will make you realize that you are protected by the Lord Jesus Christ. Elder, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Glad to be a part.
I appreciate your time today and appreciate you talking with us. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.